you want to have an agent to book you professional roles. So first caveat that I want to say is you shouldn't even be thinking about getting an agent until you know your training is rock solid. So if you're just a person that and I was kind of guilty of this early on. I actually think I was through a connection through Yuck Yucks. She was the manager of a Yuck Yucks, but she used to be an agent, and she knew the agent that I ended up signing with. But I probably got an agent earlier than I should have, because I don't think I really knew what I was doing. I had some talent level, but I wasn't properly trained, and I certainly didn't have any on-camera technique. So the first thing is you shouldn't really be thinking about getting an agent until you've done acting training. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be like a 4-year conservatory, but you got to have some rock solid craft, because and Tom, our teacher, our coach at the Todoroff Conservatory, always talks about this, and he teaches people who they're just chomping at the bit, get an agent, get an agent, get an agent. And he's very he wants to warn people of that, because you can burn those bridges. And even if you do get an agent and then you go see a casting director, if you're not rock solid, then it's a first impression that doesn't give you a second chance if you kind of blow that, or if you just seem like you're unprofessional and you're not ready for the league. And he also often talks about how a lot of people just feel because they were in a school play, or because they can quote unquote memorize lines, or because a family member said like, oh, you should be an actor someday, that just means, oh, I get an agent, get a picture, and all of a sudden somebody says, you got the goods, kid, and throws you in the movies. And that's really not the way it works. So you don't want to do that too early, because you're just burning all those bridges. Also, the thing is, it's professional. There's a huge difference between community theater and having fun, or even making your own sketches and plays, to being paid thousands of dollars per day in a high pressure $1 million production where there's 100 crew and cast, and you got to nail your marks and nail continuity and nail all your lines. Otherwise, you blow a take that then it ends up costing them $10,000 to do it again, because it was a crane shot and something was blowing up in the background. Like there's really high stakes to this. So I would just, the caveat is wait until you really feel that you're ready. And the other thing that goes with that is don't even bother approaching an agent until you have the materials. An agent is like a sales rep for you. So in order to be able to sell you, yeah, you got to have all the craft, and you got to have the ability, like the professional skills, craft, and technique to be paid as a professional. And Tom always mentions too, it's like every other trade or profession, you got to go through schooling and certification, but technically anyone can call themselves an actor and then go try and get an agent. But that would never fly in any other avenue, where you're like, yeah, I'm a carpenter, but it's like, that's just because you got a business card and took a picture of you with a hammer and now you're a carpenter. Like, it doesn't really make sense. So but provided that you got your technique, and I think that probably means a stage or scene study acting class, and an on-camera class if you're looking to do TV and film, because it is different. It's slightly different. It's adapting a little bit to lens, and maybe changing your voice. It's essentially all rooted in the same training, though. If you're a theater trained actor, you're going to be fine on TV and film, but you might need a little bit of training to figure out lens and frame. But after that, it's going to be your materials. An agent needs professional headshots, and those aren't headshots that were taken by your buddy who just bought his first DSLR and he took you into an alley here and took a couple pictures that don't look like headshots. So pay some money for a professional photographer who actually specializes in actor headshots, because it's not as simple as just like, here I am in my backyard. Also, a resume formatted in a document. We won't get into the formatting of that, but you can Google actor resumes, or shoot us a message if you want to see how to format that. You don't necessarily have to have a huge resume, but you at least have to have a document that looks like a resume, that shows whatever you've done. Maybe you've done some improv classes, maybe you have some acting classes, maybe you were in a like, I would never go back as far as like elementary or even high school, unless you just graduated from high school. But looking back at student films, indie films, kind of whatever you have, you can put it on there. But then the other thing is demo reels. So in order to sell you and to pitch you to casting directors, especially now, since in a digital post-COVID age, we're not really getting into rooms as much, you need to have something to show that agent so they know, like, okay, what are you like, how like what roles might you be cast for, what are your
Mhm.
chops like, do you have some range, do you have special skills? And that's tough for people as well. So but don't even approach an agent like, if you don't have a resume put together, headshots, or a range of headshots, maybe 3 to 5 different looks, different vibes, and some form of demo reel. Otherwise, it's like you're going to ask somebody for something, or you're trying to start a relationship, but you don't even have the things necessary for that person to say yes. So you're going into a meeting, or you're sending an email to an agent that guarantees you're going to get a no, because you don't have what they need. They only make money from the 15% of the bookings that you earn when you book stuff. So
Mhm.
you don't have the craft, and you don't have experience, and you don't have headshots, and you don't have a demo reel, you're never going to get a gig, because the agent has nothing to sell. So why waste your time and an agent's time by approaching them? That being said, if you got all that stuff, if you can put it together, ideally a demo reel has actual produced TV and or film. Obviously, the bigger and well known it is, the better on your demo reel. But often that's a chicken and egg dilemma for people, where they're like, well, I need experience to get a demo reel, but I need a demo reel to get an experience. So if you're new or starting out, or if you haven't got footage from things that you've been in, your other options, sort of the second tier of options, would be student films or indie films, where you put together your own cast and crew and shoot something of decent quality, and you're able to then cut out your scenes and just focus on you.
Mhm.
And then the third tier below that, if you can't do that, but it might not even be below that, it may be equal, because one caveat with student films and indie films is usually the time that you're spending on those is unpaid. So it can be a decent chunk of time where you're committing to that, which is fine. In the beginning, I said yes to every student film and every indie film, just
Mhm.
to get the on-set experience and the camera time and the demo reels. The challenge with getting the footage is often it takes a year or two for films to be released. Sometimes
Yep.
projects don't ever get completed. Sometimes
Yep.
the editor deletes them off his hard drive. Sometimes the director or producers scrap the whole project, or sometimes they just stop replying to your emails. So you put in the time as a volunteer actor to be a part of this student or indie film, under the understanding that your pay really would be to get the footage, and it
Yep.
never arrives. So
Mhm.
the other option is, you whether you do it at Laughing Vikings or somewhere else, you you record sort of an audition style scene, or I mean, formerly called self tape, self record, self submissions, and you have sides and a reader off camera, but it's just a frame of you, not a finished product with music and scoring and color correction and all that, but just a simple nice close up to medium frame of you in a variety of either scenes, or those could be scenes or monologues. I guess scenes are probably closer to what you'll be dealing with when you're actually auditioning,
Mhm.
but a couple contrasting monologues, and I would keep the monologues a minute long, and of varying styles. Like in Tom's class, he suggests always, he has some classical, so maybe you might have a Shakespeare or a Chekhov. If it's more contemporary, make one of them very physical, so you can show some physicality, so maybe some movement. If there's some dance, or maybe there's a little fight choreo or something in it. Also, one that's more of a sitcom writing. So again, something more contemporary from what you might get cast in these days for
Mhm.
TV and film. And also, if there's a dialect or an accent that you can do, maybe a self-written piece, but you got to really trust that the writing is good enough. What you want is, you want writing that's strong. Writing is really what makes strong actors, and the strongest actors are always working on the strongest writing. So if you get really strong writing for your monologue or for your scene, you're just going to present better. And you book a session here at Laughing Vikings, either on Zoom. We've done a bunch of them on Zoom, or we've done them here in the studio. Session director will work and rehearse with you, give you tips to kind of dial it up and tweak your performance and improve things. And then we'll edit it together. And we've had several people come to the studio and do just that, where they didn't have demo reels and they cranked out a couple monologues, a couple scenes, sent a resume, sent some headshots, and then they were able to land agents, or they got into a conservatory or a theater, like a repertoire company, and got work from that. So I guess the lesson is, don't do it too early, but also you got to fight for it. If you want an agent, it might take you a while to do that. And so provided you have all that stuff, once you have your demo and you have your materials and you have your training, then it's like, how do I actually approach these agents? And you can cold call, email, you can go to their websites, you can send them packages, but cold calls, if you're an unknown, is like a needle in a haystack that you'd be snagged. Again, agents are looking to make money from you. So if you're an unknown who has no resume and no work, would you represent you knowing that you would only get 15% from your non-career? It's a tough one for someone to take that leap. So the best way, and the way that I was taught and the way that I've seen have success in the industry, is an actor referral. So assuming you know other actors, and even if you don't, you can go to the roster of some of these agents. You can see who is on them. Maybe you do have a connection with some of those actors. And for an actor to introduce you, and it's just a simple email where you CC two people, and like I've done it with my agent occasionally, where but again, I don't do it too often, because it's like you don't want to leverage your relationships too much, where you're just like burning bridges. Like, so someone's got to really have their shit together for me to want to do it. But just an email saying like, hey, this person is looking for, I know this person, I've worked with them in several theater and TV film productions. They're great, doing lots of good stuff. They're looking for new representation. Thought I'd introduce you to see if there might be a mutual fit. Hope it works out. And then I just kind of wash my hands of it. And then they follow up with each other. Sometimes it's at a meeting. These days, I think it's usually a Zoom meeting, to get a feel for what the actor's looking for, what the agent's looking for, see if there's a mutual fit. It's also a weird time right now, because this last year, the industry's been in flux because of COVID. So a lot of agents have been scrambling just to figure out how to get their current roster back to work. But that being said, I would never really discourage. If you feel you're ready and you got the stuff, I would like go fight for it and go get it, and just kind of be not relentless in an annoying way. But if you contact people, I would say don't accept it unless it's clearly a no, never, you're awful, please never contact me again, which would probably never happen unless you did something really weird off the top in contacting them. Usually what you might do is you'd send them, maybe if you send out that email, or if you get that referral and it doesn't work out immediately, then a few months later, give them some new good news in a real nonchalant way. Not like, hey, where have you been? I haven't heard from you for 6 weeks. Why didn't you reply to my email? But like, hey, just wanted to check in. I'm doing this theater show. Here's some tickets. By the way, here's my new demo. I'm also a singer. I just released my new single. Check this out. So you give them good news and make them realize that you're doing stuff, whether you have an agent or not. And that's the other thing that I would say is, a lot of people think that the agent is going to be the savior to your life and career. And the second you get an agent, your agent just makes you. But they're still going to fight. They're going to have to fight to get you in casting directors' rooms. Casting directors then have to see your audition. They'll pitch you to production. So there's a lot of steps there for you to actually get it. But I know a lot of very successful actors who are unrepresented and they just hustle. They're really strong actors, so their work speaks for themselves when they self-submit on any of the casting sites. They have already relationships with producers and directors and with other actors who are self-producing their own things, and they're able to just hustle and get it done. So don't think that it's the be all and end all. And the flip side to that is, when you do get an agent, a lot of people think that's like, oh, I got an agent, that's how I get work. So, and then they don't make relationships, they don't network, they don't go to special events, or they don't continue to even train, because they're like, well, I just wait for my agent to send me an email every few weeks, and that's how I get ahead in this business. So Your agent technically works for you. You got to be the CEO of your own business, even when you get an agent. So just don't put as much weight into that as you think you need to, and don't do it too early.